She's going to be giving us a quick conversation that I've been looking forward because you and I had a side chat about this. And so I'm not going to take any more time. Joy? Karibu. Let's give her a hand as she comes on.
No, that's not the case. A very good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. It's very interesting being out of the KICC, I'll tell you that much. I feel like the air is cleaner, it's fresher. The energy is a lot more contagious. So thank you so much for having me here. I was completely reflecting on what we've prepared to speak on here, and I find it completely irrelevant to the energy that I'm feeling in the room. And so you will bear with me as I freestyle this keynote. You know, a few years ago, I served as the Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry in Botswana, and one of my favorite parts of my job was actually when I got to interact with what I termed as my true constituents, which were younger SME entrepreneurs that I felt needed more of my attention as the minister in comparison to the larger corporates that quite often got the government's attention due to their balance sheets and you know, the way that they contribute to trade. And so when I walked into this crowd, it reminded me of those times. And so we've had a whole week. For us, it's been a whole week at the KICC and in Nairobi. We started off with a climate and development conference with UNECA, and then we went on and did the Africa Climate Action Summit, and now we've started the Africa Climate Week. There's just so much that is happening at a policy level. And I felt that the conversation that was truly missing was the one that connects with the businesses in the space. So we've seen and heard of the very inspiring statements by African presidents and African leaders. And it's good to hear the change of tone from African leaders to, you know, the world needs to do more for us, or you know, we are victims to climate change, to changing tone to we can be leaders in this space, we are leaders in this space. Our indigenous knowledge can actually contribute to climate action around the world, not just in the continent, and putting forward solutions. So this has been a really good, positive change of tone by African leaders. We've talked about the trillions, and now there's an announcement that in total, the announcement's about $26 billion. The question is, to whom, when, and how? And this is something that I'm hoping that the crowd that's here will pressure and pester more for who is getting the $26 billion. What kind of innovations will benefit from the $26 billion, and the innovations that will actually lead to changing people's lives that have been looking on their TVs, being told that there is an Africa Climate Action Summit that's going to lead to change and reduce their vulnerabilities to climate shocks. So if you haven't been at ACS, and you may have seen the statements, the real question for you, or I hope your interest would be, how do you plug into that policy and legislative ecosystem to make sure that there is connections from the highest level to the grassroots, and that the innovations, the businesses that you are running or financing are actually in touch with the challenges that we know the communities are facing today and that we know they will be facing tomorrow. But as we were talking about MDB reform, and we are asking the World Bank to change the way that they deal with the continent, how does that actually change the price of rice and maize meal and salt in our communities? And are your innovations relevant to changing the price of salt in our communities? And I think if innovations are still solely focused on, and no shade at all, but if they're still solely focused on social media and connecting people, we have enough of that. We need more, particularly in adaptation and resilience. There has not been enough done in adaptation and resilience in the continent. And quite disappointingly for me, even the declaration by the heads of states had 3 lines or 4 mentions on adaptation. And this is concerning because we know already that we are spending well over 30% of our government budgets on adaptation and resilience that we cannot afford. So why is it that when we are making a call on the international community to do something, we do not have a call that is specific on increasing financing to adaptation and resilience? So if there's a failure at the MDB level of financing adaptation and resilience, I certainly would hope that at PE, at VC level, there will be a focus on adaptation and resilience. Because a failure for us to look at adaptation and resilience is a complete failure of the economic and social dynamics in the continent. There will be no development, and we will continue to increase the economic disparities that exist now. We are building and seeing an acceleration of the green financial infrastructure, and you're a part of it. And if it continues to fester these economic disparities, then it basically means we are failing. We are failing the communities that are offering corporate citizenship to the businesses that we're running. I can spend quite a bit of time on this. Again, I'm freestyling, so it's a bit of a challenge. You can tell me I have 2 more minutes left. Thank you. Right, so as I conclude, we had an op-ed at the beginning of ACS on Project Syndicate. So myself and Dr. Mahmoud and Ruben Wambui. And in that op-ed, we have 5 points that we're mentioning. So it's the multilateral development reforms. And then there's one in particular on providing a catalytic fund for project origination, because this is something that we've seen as a problem. So in the last year, we started a project compendium for all regions in the world, but with a very specific focus on Africa. And what we have seen is that funding to project origination is very little. And it's disconnected to expansion financing. And it has actually also reduced between 2019 and 2022. So the recommendation is that through IFIs and MDBs and all the public financing that we know we can control from that level, we should work on credit enhancement tools to crowd in private sector financing to enable project origination, amongst others. So really specifically on that recommendation, my ask to you is to help us dissect that particular recommendation and expand on it. What does it really take to work on credit enhancement and create an ecosystem that will enable smaller businesses to thrive, but also taking it beyond the SME level to building unicorns in the continent? What would it take? What sort of recommendations should we push at the level and spaces that we work on. And then lastly, I would like to further offer the platform that we have as the champions to you and to your network as we head on to COP, because I think it will be very critical for us to ensure that we create more spaces for innovators. It is not the governments that are going to do it. It is the businesses, it's the innovators that are really going to bring the change that we want. We can talk about policy as much as we want. If the policy does not work for you, then we are also failing. And we need to be challenged to create sandboxes that enable for innovation to thrive. So please do use this platform that we have, allow us to champion the issues that will actually lead to change. Thank you very much and have a good morning.
Bogolo Kenowendo, United Nations champion for climate change, high-level champion. Youngest minister on the continent, you still hold that record. I think you were a cabinet minister in 2018, 2019, something like that, for Botswana in Ministry of, I believe it was Industrialization, Trade and Investment or something. Yeah, that was it, that's it, Investment, Trade. And you're currently the board chair of the Bank of Gaborone. That's who was standing in front of you, in case you missed it. Okay. We're going to jump into the next session. It's going to be nice and fun. Yes, ha, I want to move chairs. But there you go. Anne-Marie, James, Kate, Nelly, and Miley are going to come on stage. Please, I'm going to invite you to come on and go up the stairs and get your seats as we put microphones on each of them. And the conversation is, what will it take for Africa to lead in the climate change conversation? We just talked about Octavia, which is doing the carbon capture. And they mentioned yesterday, if you heard their pitch, that Kenya is the perfect country, and there's quite a few, 200-something plus, perfect country to do this. We capture carbon from the air, we dig it into the ground and drill it through. And again, the conversation around the $27 billion that was announced yesterday has happened. It's not about how much money has been put to it, it's about how we get to use it ourselves. And this conversation is going to be about that. I'm going to pass around microphones. You've got one, you've got one, you've got one.
Is it working? Okay. All right. Well, we have a pretty fantastic lineup. Now, following the inspiring words from Bogolo Joy, we can really turn to the question, what will it take? What will it take for the African continent to lead in the climate transition, especially the innovators and the investors that can really, as you said, make the businesses thrive, those that can really provide the solutions to climate vulnerable communities. And as we said, we're really at this crux because we're seeing all the opportunity, and at the same time, we also see the barriers. We also see the work that we need to do, and that's why we're all here today, to discuss how we will make that change over really the next decade. So I'm going to first ask my great panelists in 1 minute or less to introduce yourself and your company, and we're going to start with James.
Thanks, Melis, and thanks for putting together this amazing event. It's a real Is it okay? Okay, great. It's a real privilege to be here with this amazing group in this amazing space. My name is James Irongo Mwangi. I am one of the founders and Chief Executive Officer of Africa Climate Ventures. We are a venture builder focused on massively scalable interventions on the continent. And I am also a founder of the Climate Action Platform Africa, which is a think tank looking at climate positive growth in Africa.
Thank you, Mylis. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here today. I'm Kate Callow, and I'm the founder and CEO of Amini. We are building an environmental data infrastructure for the continent, and I'll tell you what it means a little bit later.
Good morning, everybody. Anne-Marie Chidzero. I'm the Chief Investment Officer for FSD Africa Investments. I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do, but I just want to share with our keynote speaker how energized I feel to be in this room. I mean, it's amazing. I had the opportunity of being with the big corporates, and I chose you guys because it's just really exciting and heartwarming to see the energy and the opportunity on this continent. The future is yours, and we're here to make sure that that future is a sustainable one. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'm the last person. Thanks so much. My name is Nelo Hodise, founder of Tola. So we accelerate biosecurity compliance, ensuring that small and medium-sized businesses on the continent are compliant in terms of organic, climate sustainability, and a whole umbrella of different types of compliances so that they are climate resilient.
Fantastic, thank you all. So let's start by actually painting a little bit of the picture. And I think we have probably the best person to do that. So I'll turn to you, James. You recently left after many years at Dalberg to launch Africa Climate Ventures, and you're also involved in CAPE. So clearly recognize this massive opportunity. But what are the key drivers that you think are enabling the opportunity concretely? Can you describe that for us?
Happy to, and with apologies for a large portion of this room who've heard this spiel several times, but I'll try and do it quickly. I think Boholo already began to capture some of what is both our challenge and our opportunity. Let's see what it looks like. And the way I would characterize it is as follows. Historically, Africa, when we talk about climate change, we focus on the reality that Africa did not cause it, is feeling the brunt of it, and lacks the resources to deal with much of its implications. And that the world should address that, which is absolutely true. And that's a critical debate for us to have. It is a debate that sometimes unintentionally obscures another point. It's not even a debate, it's a fact that obscures another fact, which is if you have the young workforce, if you have the superabundance of renewable energy, if you have the massive array of raw materials, land, and other natural assets that every single African country, to varying degrees in different aspects, is endowed with, then you have three pathways available to meaningfully contribute, so to not just be the victim of climate change, but to play a central role in the world meeting the Paris goals and indeed getting back to a more habitable and balanced climate. The first of those pathways is it is worth a lot to the whole world for Africa to embrace green growth. If we go on an emissions-intensive pathway for our own development, say the pathway adopted by the most recent countries to really make this jump in a meaningful way, countries like Vietnam, for example, if you model a Vietnam-style business-as-usual transition over the next 30 years into middle-income status for most of Africa, that adds something like between 7 and 10 billion tons of new emissions every year into the atmosphere. There is no climate model that is resilient to that in terms of what we are expecting in order to stay below net zero. So how do we deal with that? We clean up our cooking. We leapfrog to e-mobility. We think about regenerative agriculture. We rethink how we construct our homes. And. Think about every aspect of what a developing and evolving society needs. And we are going to need on the continent innovations that allow us to do those things, improve quality of life without increasing emissions. Huge opportunity, worth literally gigatons a year. And the question is, how do we pay for it? And there's a number of ways that one can think about that. The second opportunity proceeds from the first. Because one of the things that drives the first opportunity, the fact that Africa can actually, without much cost, leapfrog to green, is the fact that we have so much untapped renewable energy. And that untapped renewable energy, coupled with our raw materials, coupled with our labor force, opens up a second opportunity, which is climate competitiveness. I spent years trying to figure out how would Africa increase its share of global industrial activity from the 3 to 4% that we have now to something close to our share of global population. Even 15% would be transformative for this continent and still be less than Africa's fair share. Now, in the old days, we used to look at it as, can our labor be cheap enough? Can our infrastructure be good enough? And the thing is, each of those things is kind of a circular problem. There's a limited amount of skilled labor, so it's initially expensive until someone comes over. But once you factor in carbon, Africa is the greenest place to do much of the world's primary processing, a lot of the world's data processing, and with its labor force, a lot of the world's labor-intensive manufacturing, once you begin to develop and invest in our green energy resources. But it's true across the board. When you think about agriculture, any space where you see Africa exporting stuff that hasn't had its full amount of value added to it, in order for someone else to use energy to add value, that is a missed climate opportunity. There's carbon there. And as the world begins to care more about that, there are businesses to be built that are saying, we are offering greener minerals, we are offering greener agricultural produce, just by virtue of the fact that we're processing it with renewables, using organic and climate-smart processes on the continent. So that's the second thing. We're reducing the world's emissions by doing more in Africa. And the third pathway is recognizing we're going to overshoot. There's no doubt about that. We are going to emit more than our carbon budget before 2050. And science is very clear. We're going to need a massive industry of carbon removal around the world. Some of that is going to be about preserving and expanding Africa's forests and natural resources, our mangroves, our grasslands, our peatlands, all of the stuff we need to do to develop an economic model for preserving, conserving, and expanding those. We also need our farmers thinking of their primary products not just as the food and other products that they sell into the market, but as increasing the amount of carbon they're drawing down into the biosphere and putting into the lithosphere, into our soils, right? And for that you need labor. It's a lot of work. But the bad news is, I was just reading an article today, the world's forests this year emitted more carbon than they absorbed. Simply because we have hit a tipping point where climate change itself is feeding on itself, right? You're seeing forest fires everywhere, right? You're seeing die-offs of natural sinks. And that means we are going to have to give nature a hand because we've already pushed nature over a tipping point. And that means a lot of innovation in how else do we remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Some of the promising early spaces, the things that are already, there's no reason why we should not be massively scaling the application of biochar to African land. We have the labor, we have the biomass. It's a technology that's 5,000 years old. The question is who will figure out how to scale it and roll it out. There's also enhanced rock weathering, literally taking carbon-loving basalts, crushing them and spreading them on our soils. Both of these things, oddly enough, are fertilizer. They lower soil pH, which is one of the biggest problems Africa's farmers have, and they increase moisture retention, and they allow us to farm more. And then, so those kinds of things are available to us. The question is who will come up with the scalable business models for doing that across the continent at gigaton scale. Billions of tons of material needs to be spread on Africa's land. We have plenty of land, we've got plenty of labor, someone needs to build those businesses. And then on the far end, there's going to be a residual that we will only get to with highly engineered technologies. This is using scientific processes that are well understood and figuring out energy efficient ways to draw that 0.6% of carbon in the atmosphere and capture it and get rid of it. And we are well positioned. I'm not going to repeat that aspect. Many of you will have heard it. But the work that folks like Octavia and others are doing is exactly that. How do we start to build an industry that in the beginning will be very expensive and energy intensive, but you know what? In the 1970s, Jimmy Carter put solar panels on the roof of the White House and he was told this is wasteful because they cost $70,000 a panel, right? But you had to start there in order to ride the cost curves.
Imagine that. You have to start somewhere, indeed. So green growth, climate competitiveness, and carbon removal as the massive opportunities. And as you said, like, we need to find the businesses that can actually scale and reach big scale, and that needs financing. So I do want to turn to Anne-Marie. At FSD Africa, they've really positioned themselves and done an amazing job over the past few years in greening finance and financing green. So Anne-Marie, what does that mean to you, and how is FSD Africa and FSD Africa Investment in particular aiming to finance the innovation that we need to reach the goals that James talked about?
Okay, thank you very much, Miley. So just a little bit of an explanation of who we are. So FSD stands for Financial Sector Deepening. So we're FSD Africa, and what we do is we try to make the investments, but also support the policy and the ecosystem that will make finance work for Africa's sustainable future. And what I do is I make the investments in the frontier, forward-looking, innovative financing solutions to achieve that. So let me unpack that a little bit. So there are clearly failures in our financial sector. Capital is just not going to where it needs to go. There's also a great opportunity for the African financial sector to leapfrog the way other financial systems have developed in other countries. You take, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, M-Pesa, how that leapfrog, the communication sector, and so there's great opportunity to do that. So what we are doing now is, again, being at the frontier of finance, really trying to drive finance to ensure that capital goes to where it's needed, is to back the early stage innovative solutions that can do that. And our portfolio, which currently sits at about £92 million, has a diverse group of intermediaries that we've backed. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those that are pertinent to this community. So we are a backer of Catalyst. And the reason why we decided to back them is because they're providing innovative solutions to finance early stage companies in the climate space. So in order to tap into the opportunities that James talked about, we need you guys to actually come up with the ideas, and you need the funding. We get that. And so we back Milas, because she's got, and her team, Karen and Maxime and others, because they have a very innovative way of doing this. So we've backed them with this early stage funding in order for them to anchor and raise a fund. We've also backed Persistent. I don't know if Persistent is here. Similar approach, again, in climate adaptation. And we've actually anchored James and his GP. So again, conversations that we had, we're trying to find those innovators and then work with them, provide them with the investment capital. We want a return on our investment, and we know we'll get a return on our investment because we're backing brilliant ideas, brilliant people at the cutting edge of change on the continent. We've also backed another facility that's really trying to test innovative funding structures that are particularly designed to supporting small and growing businesses. So it's really testing out what we are all used to in the more formal world of private equity and private debt. Is those structures are structures that have actually originated from the Northern Hemisphere. We need to find structures that are more appropriate to our needs, our societies, our communities. So that's what we do. We're a catalytic investor. We take on a lot of risk, but we are taking that risk because we believe in the opportunity, we believe in the founders that we're backing, and we really actually want to test how these structures can grow. We're not only working in the venture space, we're also looking at capital market structures. We're really trying to deepen capital markets. And it's important to make that link because one day many of you will want to IPO. And if we don't have deep capital markets to do that, that's going to be a challenge. And so we're working across the spectrum of financial sector in order to really scale, mobilize capital, smooth out the way it moves to meet Africa's climate agenda. Thanks, Miles.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. And frankly, for everyone in this room, I have to say we couldn't have asked for a better anchor partner because FSD Africa is unique in the creativity they have in thinking about the solutions for every single fund, and then also at the bigger scale, like at bonds, right, for the African continent. And that's a really, really unique player in the ecosystem, hopefully catalyzing a lot more of the capital sitting in this room today. So let's move to Kate first, and then to you, Nele. On the entrepreneur side, you heard, okay, we have to take these solutions to massive scale. We've heard about the opportunity. So for the two of you, what was, in your view, the opportunity you saw and the reason why you decided to launch your venture? And what do you see as that path? What do you see as that path to scale in both your cases? Starting with you, Kate.
Thanks, Miles. So when we founded Hello. Now it's working. So Amini was actually born out of COP last year. And we saw two opportunities on the continent. On one side, supporting businesses, global businesses with supply chain onto the continent to report to regulators, because the regulations are coming for them from the SEC, from Europe, but they had no visibility on what was happening at the last mile. And the second opportunity was supporting the transition to regenerative agriculture at scale. But when we started building, we realized that there was a deep issue, which was the data scarcity on the continent. It was really, really difficult to access high-quality data so that we could build the machine learning models and all the solutions, the platforms to solve those two purposes. So we thought to ourselves, and we were like, okay, so if we continue that path and we continue building the solution, we're going to run into that data issues again, and again. So why don't we pivot towards building that data infrastructure and then in turn providing this data to others to build on top of? So that's how we pivoted towards the data infrastructure play. And originally, we built a data aggregation platform. So we used geospatial data, we calibrated against ground truth, we scrapped for any ounces of data we could find, soil studies and so on, and we integrated that into our platform. And we realized that it was still not enough. And I've heard from my panelists, from my fellow panelists, the word leapfrogging. So we decided, okay, so how do we go about generating data at scale for the continent and supporting or taking innovation and helping the continent leapfrog? So we pivoted towards also building a constellation of nanosatellites. So now you have the processing platform. We're building the constellation of nanosatellites. Our first one is going up next year. And then all of a sudden, we're able to open a wide range of opportunities and innovation. But that's not enough, because if I do that, I provide data to businesses, to governments, but what about our people? How do we actually close the loop and use that data, that same data that we're selling into businesses, to build more resilience and profitability for small-scale businesses and farmers at the last mile? And for us, this was the opportunity and the innovation we've wanted to drive. We're really a company who is trying to drive growth on par with impact, because ultimately, if we don't enable our people, we will go nowhere.
Kate, can you actually give us an example of how the user, so ultimately a smallholder farmer, will be able to benefit from Amini?
Absolutely. So there are two cases. We can talk about insurance that everybody knows, and we can talk about also food and beverage or cosmetic companies who are buying from smallholder farmers on the continent. We had a thesis that every economic development starts with the availability of data. So if you see the world that we have today in the US and Europe, the fact that we're able to hold iPhones today, it all started with an explosion of data. And then machine learning, AI made a lot of advancements using this data. But for us, for technology to be truly useful, it has to be invisible. So when we started the company, we never wanted to introduce any new technology to farmers. We said, okay, we will give access to that to businesses, but how do we make it transparent for the farmers, but also useful? And we decided to build a system that allows a company such as Mondelez, for example, who is sourcing cocoa from West Africa, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire. We're tracking data at the farm level. We're able to understand soil, crop health. We're able to measure deforestation, providing that data to Mondelez, but also allow Mondelez to send insights to the farmers. And what we realized through a couple of pilots is that just with those insights, farmers are able to improve their productivity by 80 to 90%. And the way they're being delivered is via SMS and USSD that they're already using today.
Fantastic. So data is the new invisible gold. Is that right?
It is.
There's a lot of the agtech companies, I think, here in the room would probably want to talk to you after. But Nele, let's turn to you, because I think you share similar philosophies. So can you tell us about Tola and the opportunity you saw and the potential for scale?
Okay, one thing I would say that I've always been passionate about preventative healthcare. And if there's one thing about climate change on Africa, it's going to take a different turn. Because anywhere in the world, we might just talk about climate change and what it does for the atmosphere. But on the African continent, it has an impact on healthcare because it affects how we grow our food, the quality of our food, and downstream, it has an impact on food security. So what we started to do at Tola was to work on how do we increase biosecurity in our food production in terms of working with farmers to make sure that they start creating more resilient methods of producing food. Because a typical example is that with climate change, there's excessive heat. Some of our crops might grow quite quickly and get to harvest quite quickly, and some of the nutritional benefits like protein, zinc, and iron that we need in our crops may not be present. And downstream, you'd find that that's the biggest cause of your cardiovascular diseases you find on the continent, and also some of the diseases you find in food that affect a lot of mothers who are pregnant mothers and also children under the age of 5 years. So we started working on creating biosecurity compliance at large scale, because with biosecurity compliance is we allow a lot of the farmers, we bring all those where we get to audit farms and make sure that they produce food at the level that is required globally to meet the standards of food that is needed in the retail markets. Because when we looked at right now, all those standards are tailored for large businesses. Your ISO certification, your global gap certification. So we took those standards and said, can we build them and lower them to smallholder farmers and food businesses? So we started saying, let's increase scale. So right now we have built a model where farmers in the remote areas, currently in Southern Africa, that require compliance, they can reach out to us and we match them with the nearest auditor to run compliance at the farm. And part of compliance is that we equally train the farmers on what are the standards of production. So we work with them, and when they meet those standards, we then audit them, and when they are compliant, we match them to opportunities for trade, because compliance allows them to do global trade or cross-border trade. Right. So that's what we do.
Fantastic. So in the hope, obviously, to increase the production of organic farming as well as export, and so increasing the incomes of the farmers ultimately, thanks to a more infrastructure meso play. I think that's super interesting and very needed, actually. So to all of you, we've talked about the opportunity a lot, but I want to turn to what's next? What will it take next, right? And especially coming out of the Africa Climate Summit, can we just hear in turn, what is in your view the major barrier standing in the way for progress and action to happen quickly? Because I think what also we heard from Bogolo is the need for speed, the need for scale, the need for increase of breadth of solution and financing instruments. So how do we get there? What is the number one barrier in your mind? James.
So I think this is not the number one barrier. It is a barrier I'm particularly focused on. I think we have now a growing ecosystem where we can focus on the immediate needs in our local environments and generate the capital that's commensurate to tapping that. There's a different set of opportunities that require much larger amounts of capital to kind of build global competitiveness in a number of sectors, where in kind of the carbon economy of the future. And one of the things I think is the next step here is making clear that that investing in climate tech in Africa is really an advantageous thing for global capital to look at, that this is actually a place where you're getting more carbon per dollar spent or dollar invested than almost anywhere else. Because without that, some of the, getting our university graduates and so on to go into deep tech, highly engineered approaches, or marshalling large numbers of people, because what we're talking about is putting thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to work, doesn't make sense unless you're raising capital at a scale that looks a lot more like climate tech companies elsewhere in the world, which it should, because at the end of the day, climate tech is one of those spaces where, the carbon, CO2 is everywhere in the world. We should just be going to where it makes most sense to do it. So one challenge for us is how do we tell the story of this is not this is not a sector that should be limited by investors' view of just the size of the African market, but rather the size of the addressable problem and Africa's ability to address that problem.
Couldn't agree more, and it's sad that there's still quite some convincing to do at a global level. Kate?
I would say deploying at scale. We can't just build solutions for one country or one specific region. We have to address the entire continent at once. And probably one of the ways to do this is to work in a systemic way. As a startup, we need to be able to have access to business, to capital, but also to government, because government can be great distribution channels, but also to the MDBs, because then you get to the regional level and you're able to get that to that continental wide scale, right? But how do we do that? Because we're entrepreneurs. How do I go about reaching out to the African Development Bank? How do I go about navigating them? Because again, it's a big institution, takes a lot of time to deploy. We heard a lot this week about $1 billion facility here, $1 billion facility there, and we've been working with them, but they're extremely slow. And as a startup, time is one of the most precious things that we have. So how do we go about having that impact at scale, but also being able to navigate that ecosystem and have all of them work together?
Right, right. How that big commitments go down to the small level and vice versa, like small to big on a global scale when we talk about innovations. Absolutely. Anne-Marie?
Thank you, and if I may, I'm going to talk about three points. So first of all, we need to go fast. What does that mean for capital? That capital needs to take the risk, and they need to have a leap of faith. We just don't have the luxury of time to have all the data that we need, all of the analysis, all of the proofs or concepts. We really just have to have a leap of faith. So my call really, and then this is our role as a catalytic investor, is to actually move fast, take the risk, show the results, and then pool in a lot more capital. So really calling on the capital allocators just to think a little bit about outside the box. So secondly is, again, to that point of scale. The challenge that we have on this continent is that we're very fragmented. We're a big continent, but we have actually small markets. If we were one united state of Africa, it would be a different story. And so what does that mean? If we're going to get that scale in a fragmented economy, we need to have models where there is cross-learning, where there's aggregation, but importantly that we're communicating and we're engaging with our policymakers, because they're the ones that set the rule that actually inhibit capital to flow easily across borders. So we need to address the issue of fragmentation, and so we need to be collaborating or working with and communicating with our policymakers. And then thirdly is the link between large pools of capital and the small pools of capital that are needed to drive the innovation that's going to be so important for us to actually take advantage of the opportunities that exist. If you're looking at renewable energy sources, think about the mini-grids, the solar systems, the pay-as-you-go solar systems. We really need to be linking large pools of capital with these small pools of capital, again, because we have to address the real barriers in our economies that are caused by the fragmentation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
really just thinking outside the box,
right.
Calling upon capital to think outside the box. Time is not on our side, and if we stick to our need, we need a 10-20%, and we need, we can't take the risk because we don't know what's doing. It's just not going to work.
100%.
We've just got to get
100%.
Capital to think outside the box.
Act quickly, maybe fail fast, but learn fast, and then we move on and keep going. Absolutely. Nele?
I wish I could say more capital, because to start up capital is like air, but I'll distance myself from capital. I think that more stronger relationships with government and policymakers. I will talk a lot more in our case. If there's one thing I've realized with compliance is that it lies on the government's shoulders, the implementation and rollout on compliance. And I think it shouldn't be the case. Government should set policies, but they need to work with private sectors for the rollout of policies of compliance. Because I look at it in Kenya, for example. I mean, I was talking to some startup that is telling me we have to wait over a month for us to be compliant because it's government that runs it. In a perfect world, in developed countries, it's not government that runs it. Government sets the policies and private sectors are there to roll it out at mass scale. So I believe if we have those relationships with government and being the ones that help government, because in the long run, it allows government to say, this is what we have done, the impact that we have done if we work with private sectors. And I truly believe if we have that relationship, capital will be the resultant of us achieving those relationships.
Absolutely. Better private-public partnerships are really necessary if we want to make this work. And actually, I will take Bogolo up on her offer to use her platform as a way for us to have strong messages coming out of the Africa Climate Summit and heading to COP28, where I think the voice of African innovators and African nations is going to be very strong. So in turn, what is one ask you have of her as we head to COP28? Or the champions in general. What would you recommend that they do? And I know this is a surprise question, but.
No, I just think that this, we need to have a loud voice. And this is a vibrant community. And if there is a way to represent that vibrancy at a very concentrated way, just showing the millions of faces of founders driving a lot of these innovations, solving a lot of these problems. I think that just has to be very loud and clear, because otherwise the conversation is dominated by MDB reform, need to mobilize capital, but to where? Just as you said, just where is it supposed to go to? It's supposed to go here. It's supposed to go into these entrepreneurs. We need the funnels, we need the conduits. So we need you guys, Mailists, to provide the conduits. And so that message has to be loud and clear. And secondly, what has to be loud and clear is that this is a land of opportunity. There is so much going on, and I think that's what I take away from being at the Climate Summit. It's just the vibrancy of people running around, going into the different panels and tents, just walking through there. I didn't have to even attend any of the sessions. That vibrancy was very important to me. That message has to be loud and clear in Dubai.
Vibrancy and loud. Take notes. James?
So something that struck me even today and really throughout this week and frankly this year has been just how diverse the things that we are working on the continent are. And I think there's one aspect of this that is kind of raising Africa's voice and kind of saying, let's make sure that Africa's dynamic entrepreneurs and innovators, social and commercial, are being seen. I think there's a flip side to that, which is in every conversation, let's make sure that there are Africans present. And one of the things that struck me is that there were lots of Africans in conversations about smallholder agriculture. At the 2 COPs, I'm a huge COP veteran, I've only been to 2, right? But we are in the smallholder agriculture, the desertification. There's a set of things. You can probably write the list, any of you, of the ones where you will see Africa well represented. You will not see African voices necessarily, at least until recently, in the conversation about green hydrogen. And even if they're in that one, they won't be in the next one about hydrogen applied to technology X or Y. And what that does is it makes those conversations about every aspect of the big investments that are coming forward for to address the climate crisis, they are completely blind to the continent. There's no one there saying, oh, you're looking for the following features? We have those, right? And so there's something about us together telling the continent's story, and there's also going in and making sure that the continent is in as part of every aspect of the global response, because there's opportunity in every single one of those rooms for the continent.
Absolutely. Kate?
For me, it's always interesting to see the energy from COP to COP. You go to COP, we talk a lot, there's a lot of commitments made, and then everybody disappears for a couple of months until the climate week happens, and then we all see each other again, and we talk again, and then more commitments made, and then we get to COP, and the dance starts again, right? So if I had one ask to make today is, let's make that next COP about action, and really focusing on deployment, what we can do in practice, and less in theory. Less big commitments, we need them, of course, but actually what does it mean in practice? Can we gather an ecosystem of people, leaders, who are already driving this innovation and are willing to work together to focus on the actions?
That's what I really hope that comes out actually of this room today, that we don't just all hear, have a great time and then walk away and never talk again. So do definitely follow Kate's advice and continue to talk, continue to build towards the next COP and the one after, and but that momentum has to be sustained. Nelly?
Well, with me, I'm a startup founder, and I need to make sure that I provide you your returns, right? So,
and to Anne-Marie.
Yeah, and to you. So my ask right now is quite clear. I've said it that we need to make partnerships with government and with policyholders that will unlock us to being able to do biocompliance at large scale on the African continent, because we need to set standards on the quality of food across the continent so that there is ease of cross-border export of our goods around the continent and outside the continent. I mean, right now you see there are a lot of shipping containers that go food when they come to the African continent, and they leave the continent empty. Or sometimes even when they leave the continent full, they are stuck at the port because a lot of the goods are not compliant. So if we work with government and any other organization that has a key to unlock us being able to scale compliance at scale on the continent, that's what we want, because our business needs to grow and I need to give you your returns.
Thank you, Nell. I love that you're so focused on that. Thank you. Everyone else in our portfolio, take note. So it goes back to the point I made in my opening remarks, right? Together. So what is, to close it up, because we need to go to Q&A and we are already behind, one word that you want to leave the audience with as we continue the festival and enter all the other fantastic sessions? Just one word. Anyone wants to go first?
I'm not sure I can say it in one word, so I just say keep challenging the norm.
Great.
For any Swahili speaker here, I would say amini. It means believe, faith. So we have to have faith that we will be successful at this transition, at this climate transition.
James?
Play to win and win big.
Okay. Nelly?
Well, I'm a Nike fan, so I'll just say, just do it.
Excellent ending. Excellent ending. Let's just do it. And let's give a round of applause to the great panelists here today.
He's panicking and he's working. Okay, so we want to do a Q&A round really quickly. We are running out of time, but I'm going to try and squeeze in just 5-10 questions really quickly.
Hi, thanks. My name's Paul, and I'm from the startup company Wild Bio. And maybe to James, we know agriculture is having a massive impact on the climate. And yet in Africa, probably it's one of the last continents that's got a huge amount of arable land. And you've got commercial enterprises looking to use that to produce more food. And of course, the government wants more food because you need to get the price down. How do you see this, the other side of this picture where Africa needs to do climate transition? And I think you gave a great example with Vietnam. Yes, you can go this normal route, but how can we in Africa bring in action to almost counter, but you don't want to counter, you want government as partners, you want industry as partners. How can you really address that where you don't have this massive conflict? The companies want to make money, they're big, the government wants to get cheap food to its people. How do we address that?
I think the critical thing, Paul, it's a fantastic question, is you need to think about, is there, we designed most of our large industrial processes, and I count commercial agriculture in its 20th century form as an industrial process. We designed all of those in a world where carbon and emissions were valued at zero. And so they're all designed to just not care about emissions. It's not necessarily that you cannot meet the same levels of output without emissions, it's just that we never built systems like that. Now, most big commercial agriculture hubs in the world are already locked in to those systems, right? Very fertilizer intensive, emissions of nitrous oxide and so on and so forth, not let alone the emissions from making fertilizer and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of science that's saying, look, zero-till agriculture, regenerative agriculture, organic fertilizer, all of these things, which actually in Africa today are probably cheaper than what's being used elsewhere, if we particularly focus on delivering them at scale and with quality, might actually be able to meet and maybe even exceed the yields of other types of commercial agriculture if we're serious about it. And even if they don't, once you introduce the carbon value, you might be able to then actually, in addition to the revenue from your yields, you're actually getting that cross-subsidy from something in the carbon markets or some other mechanism like that, or preferred access as low-emissions agriculture. So I think the exact point that we are expanding our commercial agriculture, let's not make the mistake of copying systems that are simply non-viable. Let's be the ones saying we're an early adopter of what seems to work at scale.
That's it? Yeah, that's good? Yeah. Ah, we have a question over here. Is there another one? I see another one. Is there another question? So I just know where to be. Just two more. Okay.
Hi, this is Neil from Climate Kick. I just wanted to ask what your view might be on the role of larger companies and working with development agencies and philanthropies to develop demand-led innovation challenges for startups to perhaps provide a market opportunity for them to develop their solutions and bring them to the big companies and test them out in practice at a meaningful scale, helping to open up the market for them and perhaps attract investments. Do you see those sorts of demand-led innovation challenges playing any role in this, or do you think maybe they might be too small to make a significant difference? Good to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, that was good.
Anyone wants to take that?
No, yeah, I mean, I think that really is also part of the ecosystem. And I was having a conversation yesterday with somebody who was talking about the need for any company to think about their value chain. And sometimes you actually have to invest in your value chain. So if you're a large corporate, you have to think about your value chain and really taking a position on what do I need to invest into or support, because that's important for me. I think a lot of the banks are doing that. I've seen banks, for example, in South Africa, who set up these sort of hubs, or tech hubs, because what they're trying to do is create the ecosystem of services to the corporates that they're financing. So yes, it is a very important part of the ecosystem, and I think there are players that are doing that. Yeah.
Good morning. Thanks so much for the panel discussion. My name is Wendy Chamberlain, and I'm with Busara Center for Behavioral Economics. So guess what I'm going to ask you about? What behaviors need to change? What shifts do we need to see in mindsets about how to approach this topic? James has kind of alluded to it a bit in terms of seeing this as an opportunity. But if we break this down, what would be the most desirable behaviors you see shift? Thanks.
Great question. Someone wants to go first?
I'll start from capital, from the point of view of capital. I mean, I do think that there's an important behavioral change that needs to happen in the minds of the capital owners and capital allocators. Because at the end of the day, what does a return on investment mean if we don't have a planet that we live in? And so there has to be a change of behavior in how you consider your return on investment, and it should be more than just a financial return on investment. And we're doing quite a lot of work around that. So how do you value a return from a nature perspective? You know, that needs to be calculated into your return on investment. And so the more we can get capital allocators to think that way, to change that behavior, the more capital is going to flow to where it's needed in order to ensure that we are actually building on opportunities that protect nature, that reduce CO2 emissions, and that create a sustainable living planet for all of us. So that's, for me, one of the big major behavioral changes we need to see.
I think very much along those lines, the other lens I would bring is, if we think about what has counted as cool, exciting entrepreneurship over the last 20 years, it's been riding the digital revolution. It's been 3, 4 young people in a room somewhere in a garage at laptops, relatively modest amounts of capital and massive returns. And you kind of, the prototyping is quick. We're dealing in the world of bits. And there's still a lot of bits level innovation to be had in climate. But climate is primarily a world and a game of atoms and molecules. And it's a world where the coolest startups in Africa are not going to be in a trendy kind of loft somewhere in a city neighborhood. They're going to be muddy feet in the farm tracking what's happening. They're going to be in an industrial site with overalls, kind of figuring out that. And that shift, firstly, you can see it. Actually, there's a signal, right? Think about who are the richest people in the world the last 3 decades, and think about who's the richest person in the world today. There's a transition in where huge value is to be had, and it's in actually working with material things. You go to a place like Octavia and you hang out with Duncan and his team, and you see that actually we have a lot of that talent in Africa. People know how to do things with their hands. People know how to make things from things. And we need to bring that to the pinnacle of what it means to be an entrepreneur and an innovator, because it was kind of forgotten in the world of, app of the day or app of the week. There's nothing wrong with apps. I think we may have hit diminishing returns, though.
I'm going to do, pay attention to me, bro. Come on, me and you, let's do it. I'm going to do one last question, then we have to run.
Thank you very much. My name is Marianne Moniki. I'm now an entrepreneur after recovering as a banker. The question I have is the nexus between green and blue jobs and this whole conversation around climate. Often, people will continue to cut the trees to make charcoal because they need the firewood, right? So what is it that we're going to do to ensure that jobs are in the core of this conversation, and especially jobs for youth?
Should I answer that?
Yes, that is a fantastic question. Actually, yesterday, I was in another of the many events, and somebody said, in Africa, you can't talk about climate change just in the context of environmental impact. It's really very much about livelihoods, and livelihoods, it's about jobs. So, Nele, do you have an answer to that?
I think because jobs are at the core of what we do, because when we do biosecurity compliance at scale, we train people at the lower level to become accredited auditors. They could be organic compliance auditors, food safety, water safety. So it's a way for us creating jobs. And when you get people at the lower level, at community level, accelerating compliance, they are also getting to teach other farmers on what it means to be compliant. Because when we talk about the climate transition, we could talk about it at a policy level where we talk about how financiers have to handle it, but we also have to talk about it at a lower level where everyone is conscious about what we need to do to be able to contribute to net zero. So with us, we have tackled it in such a way of saying, let's create jobs in the process, because once you give people a good livelihood, it accelerates the message of climate transition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just think for us as an investor in financial solutions and intermediaries, the way we are measuring success from an impact perspective is going to be how is finance financing growth that creates those green, sustainable jobs. And that is just very key. We're not doing this just to finance something, but we're doing this to drive finance, to drive the economic growth that's going to lead to the jobs and the sustainable outcomes for all of us. So really key to everything that we do from a sort of outcome perspective.
Great, and I think we're actually unfortunately out of time, so big round of applause for these panelists. Thank you.
Indeed.
And I hope this really helped frame the conversation for the rest of the day and set the stage. So thank you all, and we're going to go on to our next panel.
Nice, and to my Elise for hosting. Let's give her thanks. Very well done. You can leave your mics on the chair. Okay. I wanted us to do a stretch, but we're not, because we're really running out of time, and I want you to have a full hour for lunch because the networking space is fantastic. So the next thing we're going to do is quick pitches. I'm going to invite our pitchers, startup founders, to come and hang around the stage. We're going to start with Farms to You, we're going to have New Nation, Nature Lock, Circularity, and SunFi. So we're going to start with Farms to You. Farms to You's in the room? Yeah, I need to, haha, there you go. So what I will do, just hold this. All right. Good luck, and let's give her a hand as she sets herself up. Farms to You.
Okay. All right, here. Sorry, just trying to get the logistics done. Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Just going to get my timer on. Great session and very inspiring so far this morning. I'll quickly talk to you about Farms to You and what we do. Farms to You, we are building the operational engine for agriculture supply chain. What does that mean? Working with technology to make traceable agricultural sourcing more scalable. We're doing this because the agricultural supply chain is broken, in the sense where, as a buyer, say Nestle, you want to source 100 tons of maize, it's very hard to source that locally. We have operations in Nigeria and Kenya, so these are the markets that I'm talking about when I'm saying it's difficult to source these things locally. You also have challenges of lengthy delivery cycles. So for instance, during the floods of last year in Nigeria, a trip that would take usually 48 hours took up to 3 weeks. These are just some of the challenges in the agricultural supply chain in Africa. So how is Farms to You addressing this? We are a conduit for growers, suppliers, and buyers. What do I mean by growers? These are smallholder and emerging commercial farmers. This was referenced in the previous panel where, unlike Global North, where you have commercial scaled farming, in Africa, we farm still at a very sustainable and smaller level. And we address the challenges in the agricultural supply chain in 3 stages. First of all, making sure that growers, so these are the people that are going to the farms, emerging commercial and smallholder farmers, are having access to finance to actually farm. And then having frictionless transactions with their suppliers, which would ultimately help buyers, as I mentioned earlier, like a Nestle, to source in a more intelligent way. We do this through 2 primary digital tools. The first one is a lending tool that essentially allows farmers access capital using the commitments they have from buyers as a guarantee for that capital. Sustainability is very much part and parcel of what we do. All our farmers practice regenerative farming. Before you can actually get on Farms to You, you need to have multi-crop peril insurance. So these things are a fabric of the products that we're building. The second product is built for procurement managers. As I mentioned, our ultimate goal is how do you automate procurement for buyers in the local markets that we operate in? And this essentially allows procurement managers source their 100,000 tons of maize with traceability, where they can actually see who grew this maize, what inputs were used, and actually having an end-to-end view of how that product was grown. We're ultimately digitizing manual processes across the agricultural supply chain. This is just a view of one of the buyers we work with, where things are very much manual, paper-based, not traceable, and we're moving this into a system that is better tracked. Climate technology and facilitating adaptation and resilience is part and parcel of what we're doing. As I mentioned, growers on our systems have to practice regenerative farming. All the inputs they use, seeds, fertilizer, they're from verified vendors, verified suppliers. So it's essentially part of that business model. And it was referenced in the previous panel that this is how we can scale solutions so that we don't run into the same problems of the global north mechanized farming that is now a huge contributor to agriculture. This is a team behind what we do. Myself and Timi, we share our time between Lagos and Nigeria because we do have Lagos, Nigeria, and Kenya as well, because we do have operations in both markets. And some of our investors in the room, Catalyst Fund, Kevin from Lofty as well, have been huge contributors to help us get to the stage that we're at. While we're not fundraising today, we are open to having conversations with collaborators, interested investors that like what we're building, but more importantly, people that want to join our team. I'm currently on a hunt for a COO to help scale us to the next level. And I'll leave time for questions. But that's Farms to You, building the operational engine for agricultural supply chain. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or via email. Thank you.
Very nicely done. I do have a jury. Questions? There you go. I have a mic for you as well. I will bring you one shortly. Yes, please go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that great presentation. Can you speak to me about what are your key revenue drivers?
Sure. So buyers that order on our platform, we make money from them. So on each transaction that is placed through the platform, we earn transaction fees. Lenders that give loans on our platform, we earn a commission on the interest rates that is charged. So we don't take liability of the loans or custody of the funds. That stays with the lender. We're literally facilitating it. And finally, transaction fees when those loans are being spent on the platform, because when the lenders do deploy the capital, it's deployed on a wallet embedded in our platform that allows for monitoring and evaluation by the lenders so that they can kick in their credit management. So these are the three main ways that we make money. Ultimately, the enterprise buyers and the lenders and suppliers are funding the system.
Hello. I wonder what your volume of revenue is at the moment and what is your burn rate?
Sure. So we're currently at 70K USD gross merchandise value, so GMV on average. This has grown from 20,000 last year. So having our pre-seed investment with Catalyst Fund and Lofty really helps to drive that uptick. Our burn rate is 14,000 USD as well. And that is continuing to increase as we continue to scale our team. It was more closer to 5,000 last year.
I think that's it, yeah?
Well, one more. I'm just curious how, as you're approaching a buyer like Nestle, what are the two things you've learned and how to convince them to use your platform, on the demand side?
Sure. I use Nestle as an example because we did start with folks like Nestle. We refer to them as tier 1 buyers. And while we started with those folks, we have segmented our users to tier 1, 2, and 3. Folks like, so people that are tier 1, so the much larger buyers, they're more bureaucratic in their processes. And you have tier 2 people like Pladis, for instance, who has just one manufacturing facility in Nigeria, who we are actually in the process of working with. And then tier 3, you have hospitality brands, much smaller businesses. So we're in that process of continuing to develop our learnings, and that's why we have those breakdown of users. So when we're approaching them, we're essentially working very closely with them to understand what their problems are. So the picture on the right here was when we're actually onboarding one of our newest tier 3 buyers, where we actually went onto their warehouse facility and witnessed one of the deliveries they had from the market, from the farm. And very, very manual, very paper-based. These are not all the pictures showing, where there could be human error, low-quality products are being delivered, or the pricing is not optimal. And this is when we then transitioned with their first pilot order, where everything is now being done with digital tools. This is the approach we take when we're working with buyers. But as you can imagine, with tier 3 buyers, it's a lot stickier, and it gets a lot more bureaucratic when we're moving higher up in the tiering.
Wonderful. Aisha from Farms to you, everyone. Let's give her a hand. Very, very nice. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Her details over there, Aisha at farm2you.com. There's everything over there you can find. It's amazing. Well done. Okay, Noor Nation is up next. Can I get my little... Yeah, thank you, and thank you, and thank you very much. Well done. Noor Nation is up next, and here he is. Your microphone and your...
Not the Agri. Yeah. Or the clean track. Yeah, good to go? It's not me. Yeah.
It's not you. It's him. This is not him.
Yeah.
He's a different person.
The clean tech picture.
These are the clean tech ones. Circularity, please. There you go. Voila. There you are. And then this one, and then this one. Go.
Hello. My name is Eric Monene. I'm the founder and CEO at Circularity, where we're using AI to turn Africa's trash into cash. So I've grown up all my life next to the largest dump site in East Africa, the Dandora dump site, and I've witnessed men, women, and sometimes even children scavenging for things that they can sell to make a living. So waste is a resource. However, collectors cannot keep up with the amount of waste we produce as a planet. Take Africa, for example. By the year 2050, Africa will be home to 25% of the globe's population. And this will see us having a 100% increase in waste production from what we had in the 1950s. Increase in waste production will lead to an increase in CO2 emissions. So what's the problem? The problem is that, one, waste collectors are not incentivized to collect or sort all types of waste. They only go for what they think has value. Secondly, waste recyclers are shy from collecting contaminated waste. If you bring me electronic waste mixed with organics, our recycler will not take that. And third, our waste infrastructure is limiting. We are not able to recover most of our waste. That's why 90% of it ends up in the landfill or in the environment in general. This is where we come in. We set up data collection points at waste collection points. For example, we work with recycling companies who are collecting textile, electronic, plastic, and we set up IoT sensors which collect data on, for example, what's the fill level of this collection point, what's the total waste collected, and we take it a step further. We embed AI to make sure that what is being dropped in the electronic waste bin is just electronic. So we train a model that is able to identify and only allow one type of waste. So all this data is sent to our dashboard. We call it Circularity IQ, which is business intelligence, but for waste resources. We provide bin monitoring in real time. We provide ESG reporting and carbon tracing. So we've come up with a system whereby if you're dropping a waste resource, we're able to know who's dropping what and what has been dropped. And it allows some of our recyclers to pay the collectors directly. Ours is a $7.6 billion African market, and Kenya is the right place to do this because of two main reasons. One, Waste Management Act. So in Kenya, you are required to sort your waste at source, and if you don't, you're fined. And secondly, it's the extended producer responsibility that needs brands and manufacturers to be accountable for the waste that they put out into the environment. And this means that if a company like Coca-Cola puts out 1 million plastic bottles, they are required to tell the government that they've been able to collect all these bottles. So what sets us apart is that, one, we're technology-driven. Secondly, it's the smart waste management approach. And third, we are partnership-based. This has us whereby our competitors, we view our competitors more as customers or potential customers because we can bring in the technology and lead the circular economy space using technology. So how we make money is through the Circularity IoT, and we have two categories. One side, which is eco bins, that just collects the bin analytics. For example, fill level and total weight collected. Secondly, we have the Eco Bin Plus, which has the AI and object detection capability, as long as user identification. And that, it's Circularity IQ, which we charge recyclers a monthly subscription of $20 per bin. And with Circularity IQ, we provide real-time data visualization, sustainability reports, prediction, and user tracking. So our traction so far is we've set up 11 eco bins, and with just over 310 users, we've rewarded over 10,000 points, which is redeemable for cash or for discounts on products. Through bootstrapping and grant funding, we have set up our technology, and we're leading Africa's climate tech space by having over 20,000 data sets with 86% accuracy in object detection. We have two patents pending, and we've onboarded a total of 5 customers for both the EcoBin products and Circularity IQ. The team leading this is myself, a software engineer by profession with 4 years experience, and Anthony Kenyo, my COO, who has 15 years experience in the corporate world. So we are looking for $100,000 in seed funding, which will help us scale our impact. And most importantly, it will help us lead Africa towards a circular economy space. Thank you.
Nicely done, right on time. Our jury.
Hello there, how are you?
Hello.
I know you a little bit. You've been through our Tech Bridge Accelerator.
Yes.
Nice to see you. Can you tell a little bit more? Who is your customer? And also, what is the incentive for the person throwing away and disposing of the rubbish to actually do it? Thank you.
So our customers are recycling companies. An example would be textile companies like ACT, We Center for Electronic Waste, and brands as well. So we are working with Coca-Cola to collect PET bottles, and for them it's all about reporting. So our sections would be recycling companies and brands and manufacturers. An incentive for users would be the Waste Management Act that requires you to either way sort your trash at source. But we take it a step further, because if we're able to collect sorted waste at source, we have better quality of waste collected. And this means that normal collectors are paid much better, get better rates through our platform compared to the conventional means.
Yeah, great presentation. Just a related question. How do you look at growth within, say, Coca-Cola? Because it seems like you have a foothold, but unlimited potential there. So how do you look at unlocking more growth in that client?
Thank you for that. So our growth is looking at focusing on the data collection point, the IoT sensors. And one thing that a brand like Coca-Cola has been keen on is making sure that they can trace how much PET is being collected at source. But then in terms of scaling up, because well, we don't look at having our IoT spread out across Africa. We are looking at leveraging Circularity IQ, for the ESG reporting, for the sustainability index. And since Kenya has already passed the EPR policy, the Extended Producer Responsibility Act policy, Circularity IQ is able to generate these reports in real time and have them in a format that the government is looking for or already relies on. So that way we have the brands already coming to us for these reports and just the sustainability index. Right.
That's good? Well done. Fantastic. Let's give him a hand real quick. You did very, very well on the timing and the clicker as well. Okay, so we're trying to manage time because, we want to have lunch and we want to make sure everything's good. So we're going to move the pitch session that is supposed to continue into the session after. But right now we're going to do a quick keynote, right? So we're really trying to play it so that we fix time and everybody gets what everybody needs. So we're going to start with the keynote right now. I want us to make sure that the screen is in the right place. Our Q&A is done. So we're supposed to have Nature Lock next, but we're going to focus on the keynote. Nathaniel over there is giving me a hand. I keep moving it forward. Come tell me, what's the plan? Okay. You see, yes, very cool. All right. I have been educated. We have changed our plan one more time. Very, very fluid. They're next. So back to the pitch sessions. Please, ladies and gentlemen, Nature Lock Foods is up next. And she even, oh, nice. The branding is fantastic. Well done. Here is your clicker, and here is your microphone.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Looks like we've got to be fast throughout. But my name's Tei Mukunya from Nature Lock Food. I'm the founder and the executive director. We're a good, strong team. And what we are doing is making food. I sometimes was wondering, how do we address climate? Do we need an app? Do we need something digital? But we're feeding stomachs. And maybe that's the end part of it. So we'll continue. Oops. Alrighty. So all African households are eating and cooking, and they're using fossil fuels a lot. And a lot of the popular dishes take 2 hours to cook, and that's mostly lentils and legumes. And if we're looking at trees, more than 5 million trees just in Kenya are being chopped down, not just for food, of course, but for many other resources. What can we do to save that? And so our vision is to positively impact the food market. And we're creating nutritious, natural foods that are made in minutes. And it looks like this. It's a pack of lentils, dengu. And what we're doing is making it as fast as possible for the consumer affordably. So we are an innovative Kenyan company. We're based in Nairobi on Mombasa Road. And we started off in 2021 just prototyping and seeing, is this actually viable and acceptable? And it is. And we can go across the value chain to be able to make something out of it. And the problem looks at it, we look at our problems in 2 folds. We have the consumer perspective, and a lot of the convenience foods in the market lack nutrition and a lot of protein and food consistency, and then also taste. We're really big on taste because it's got to be the first place you connect with food. It's got to fill your stomach, make you feel good and satisfied. And then you can solve the other problems like nutrition. And then from the environmental perspective, we don't want fossil fuels used in cooking food as much as possible. And then the energy-hungry cold chain solutions that require a lot of power. This is ambient and it can last for a year and you get a fresh meal out of it. And then we're also tackling food insecurity and food safety and food loss. And this is by being able to get what is grown by farmers subsistently and incorporate vegetables in the product so that we can be able, and then pre-cook that. And then we're able to address the consumer needs for food. So this is what we're introducing, Tuesday, a home-cooked meal in minutes. And what Tuesday does is that it gives you satisfaction. It's really good for, we're finding that the consumer is based into 2. There's students and the entrepreneur who's working every day and needs a quick meal, and then there's the family. So going into the family pack is where we're going to next, because dengu is eaten, that's green grams, they're eaten by students, by families as a household meal. So our uniqueness is that we're able to combine foods into cooked product and then we dry that so that the consumer is able to just add hot water and have their meal, similar to noodles. And our uniqueness is in our food processing because for example, I've been in the food processing industry all my life for the last 20 years, just food drying and preservation. And this has culminated to what we have been able to do with this kind of food and solution. So if we look at the potential for Africa, food. But then there's the potential for food that is fast moving, engaging the urban consumer. And so we are finding that this is a good spot for us to be able to have solutions. The lower income segment is growing into the middle income, and they're needing convenience and nutrition, and that's what we're providing. And so we have potential. If we look at where we are in the supermarket, we're at right next to noodles, because that is also a fast-moving consumer good, but we're giving the opposite offer. We're giving a protein-based food while they're giving a starch-based food, and that's complementary. Our traction, we have set up a factory that can produce 900 kilos of this product, and that's about 20,000 packs. So we are good to go, and we can scale. We're FSSC 22,000 certified and halal certified, and we have 3 permanent employees. We really like to employ women, and we have a creche and have them come with their children, and that's a big plus for us. We can do it, and we can enhance that. We have partnerships like with Farm to Feed and aggregators who are putting together good food and food that does go to waste if we do not utilize it in our process. And then we're distributing across the modern trade, that's the supermarkets, and then through Twiga and through some of the distribution channels that we have. And we have a strong management board. So we have good traction, and we're moving forward, and we feel that this is a solution that can take us places. Thank you.
To come and be like, 5 minutes is up, well done, very, very nice. Any questions?
Yeah, can you just speak briefly about how you cut through the noise in the market? You know, how do you get people to look at your product and then potentially buy your product?
That's a difficult part, and we see that it's going to take us a little bit, about 2 years to preach. And what we need to do is just sample, sample, sample. For example, we have a sampling booth outside, and you can taste the product and just get to know what it's about. And that's what we're doing. We have stands like that in the supermarkets, just channeling and talking to the consumer. How do we do it? How does it taste? Is it good? Does it have preservatives? No, it doesn't. Does it have natural food? Yes, it does. Why is it called chicken dengu? It's because it's got a chicken flavor that enhances the taste, but it's pretty good and safe. And then you also have varieties. We have beef, we have original, we have pili pili. So there's so many things to say about these products, but it's sinking in.
Hello? Yes, hi. I really liked your presentation on your business model. Thank you so much. Can you tell me a bit the ownership structure of your business, and also, I'm not sure if I missed it, but what is your ask? Yeah.
So ownership structure and ask.
Yes, indeed. We have been I'm the founder, I'm a co-founder, and we have a team of investors as well, HRSV and Finca and Factory. And so we have a few investors that have come on board. And we also are I didn't get your second question, sorry, ma'am. Yes.
Your ask.
Our ask is $2.1 million. And what we want to do with that is to scale up. We're ready for scale, and we want to be able to get to the consumers across Kenya first in the next year, and then go into the region for Africa. The beauty of this is that it is food, it is familiar, it comes to your table as a regular meal, and then we can modify the taste for the consumer level. And so that is how we want to scale up. We also will put in some of that money into improving our technology and process, so that we can, currently we use machinery that works with LPG, and we'd like to convert it to use more solar-powered energy, and there's a lot of good technology out there for that. So as we scale and we grow, we see ourselves transitioning into that, and then growing into the region with the production process. Because it is scalable, it is affordable, and we can implement it off-grid as well. So we want to be able to do that for our process.
Nice. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your time. Come through down here. There's a tasting booth, you said, outside?
There is a tasting booth.
There's a tasting booth out here. Let's go and do that. Thank you for that. And thank you so much for that. Let's give a hand one more time. Now, there's a lot to go there. And next one. Voila. There you go. Good luck. You press on. Yes, so you press on that to go next.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to make today with my presentation and reinforce the point that nature is a new tech. My name is Baptiste Berges, and I am the co-founder of Farin, a Nairobi-based developer of nature-based solution, primarily superscale forest, both as an infrastructure and using the power of technology, such as AI and remote sensing, to deliver efficiency and performance. We define ourselves as a business of sustainability, working closely with our partnering community to pursue 3 business opportunities. First and foremost, the removal and sequestration of carbon dioxide contained in the air and the sale of carbon credit. Secondly, the extraction and production of clean water that is so essential to all forms of life and tree growth. Thirdly, the performance enhancement of land-based production that is very important for partnering communities. I won't spend too much time on the problem related to global warming. We know too much about it. And the power of photosynthesis, this wonderful technology of nature to extract CO2 from the atmosphere. But there is another problem, which is how to scale a nature-based solution. You may know that the demand for nature-based solution carbon credits mainly comes from large corporations, such as Microsoft. And in their last report in June, Microsoft states the following statement. Time is non-renewable, and the next several years are crucial for global warming removal capacity. We are approaching a crunch moment between bottom-up projections, built on actual deployment rates, and top-down models solving for carbon removal 2050 climate scenarios, where actual deployments planned this decade are not on track to meet estimated global needs this century. Microsoft's target for 2030 is to achieve 5 million tons a year of carbon removals. This is a huge market, probably around $500 million a year just from Microsoft. And they realize more projects are needed. Microsoft rely on a wide portfolio of nature-based solutions to achieve this objective, like the one that Farin is developing. And they make the following statement. Power purchase agreement, PPA-style offtakes from the renewable energy industry is a key starting model for carbon removal. The founder of Farin, Mark and myself, are renewable and power specialists. Mark did the first PPA for a private sector power plant in Tanzania 25 years ago. I was part of the team that delivered the Lake Turkana wind farm project in 2014, and that is now in operation. We have a passion for Africa and its people. I can tell you, there is no bigger joy than spending time with communities and local governments to design sustainability. Our team of 15 people has a wide range of skills, from forestry to human rights, from analyzing satellite data to contract and financing, from Kenya, from Tanzania, from France, from the United States. Our first project in northern Tanzania could deliver 2% of Microsoft's needs for carbon removals. It will cost $2 million to develop and $50 million to implement. At Farin, we are at the heart of humanity's journey to rebuild the natural infrastructure of our planet. And it won't be done without the private sector. It will require this new market, this market for carbon credits and nature-based solutions, to expand and to become an avenue for investment backed by strong business models. With our experience of the renewable energy sector, we know what the market needs. These are infrastructure forest projects built at scale that deliver high integrity carbon removals and investment returns. That's why I'm here today with you. We know we can do it, and we need your support. Thank you very much.
Well done. Nice, clear, concise. Any questions?
Yeah, just what differentiates you from other project developers, globally and then in the region as well?
Well, I think this is really this experience of renewable energy. You see, we've been here in this sector for many years, and we've seen the growth of another pioneer sector that now is very, very big. We have struggled with regulatory environment, with government that was putting that in shape, with financiers that were saying a lot of risk eventually will finance this type of project. There are many similarities. So this experience is a difference. And the second one is really to build our brain as a utility of carbon removals, a utility of sustainability.
Any more questions? Yep.
What's your volume of revenue at the moment?
Absolutely zero. We founded our brain in 2022. We have been working on it for the last 2 years, and we are spending our own cash. We are self-funded for now.
I think that's it. Thank you so much. Super presentation, very clear, very concise. Let's give him a hand for that. I will also take my little clicker.
I don't go with it.
Don't go with it. All right. Voila. SunFi. Up next. There he is.
Microphone, the clicker.
All right, there he goes.
My co-founders and I were part of a team that built Aspire, a solar installer in Nigeria that believed it could electrify millions of African consumers by being the best solar installer. But like all other solar installers in the market, we realized that there was a limitation to our scale. Not only did we need quality solar installers, but we also needed quality access to equipment, and most importantly, clean energy financing. That's why we are building SunFi, a platform that's unlocking the low-carbon economy out of Africa. By now, you may know that distributed solar is the best way to leapfrog millions of under-electrified African consumers. That's because it's more than 50% cheaper than their current alternatives, including petrol and diesel generators. It's healthier, and it's also better for the environment. But there's a problem. Most African consumers find the upfront cost of solar simply too high. And financial intermediaries, they're not optimized to finance clean energy today. They're typically too slow, they're collateral-based lenders, and they're generalists. That's why SunFi comes in. We offer consumers a platform that helps them spread payments for solar solutions of their choice between 3 to 36 months. They get approvals within 24 hours, and in a few months, it will be within seconds. And they get matched with the best solar provider, installer, and solution that meets their specific needs on our platform. And we achieve this through the SunFi sandwich. We start by demand aggregation. We go direct to consumer, but more importantly, we leverage a network of solar sales and installation agents that are looking for meaningful work, and they go out every day finding consumers to switch them from petrol and diesel generators over to solar. And in the middle of that sandwich, SunFi acts as a market coordinator, developing partnerships with OEMs that are seeking route to market and effective distribution of their products to the best customers, and more importantly, lenders that want access to low-risk portfolios of millions of consumers that want to switch off of generators and get onto solar. And SunFi coordinates this market, and that's the differentiation of what we do. Our revenue model is simple. Not only do we earn sales revenue from every system that moves through our system, but we also earn financing revenue, giving us a pathway to collaborate with lenders to share that revenue with them. We charge an average take rate of between 20 to 30% annualized on the assets that we finance. And when we look across Africa, we see about 50 million similar consumers that we can replicate that same transaction with, an average revenue of $600 per customer per year, creating a $30 billion opportunity that's growing, and we're going after it. And we're already on our way. Since we launched last year in February, we've served over 640 solar systems to consumers across Nigeria. We've partnered with over 25 solar installers to achieve that, We have a wait list of 800 that are still waiting to get on the platform and get going. We've earned $200,000 plus in financing revenue and $1.4 million already in system sales revenue and growing. And our default rates are below 2%, beating the industry average across the continent. And we have the best team to continue pursuing this opportunity, having over 45 collective years of experience spanning renewable energy, infrastructure finance, building fintech and educational technology companies in the continent and around the world, setting us up to deliver value for a long time to come. We're here today to build relationships with you towards our seed extension round, which we will be launching very shortly, so stay tuned, and also to look for partners to help structure our off-balance sheet asset financing vehicle to the tune of $20 million over the course of the next year. We have some amazing investors, some of who are here today, that are helping us on our way already. We start in our beachhead market of Nigeria, financing our core asset class, which is solar. But we will grow to support other low-carbon technologies as we expand across the continent and channel trillions of dollars to unlock the low-carbon economy out of Africa. Because at SunFi, we know that it's financial inclusion that unlocks the low-carbon economy. Join us in making that a reality. Thank you.
Wow, nice, cool. Questions from our jury?
Hi there. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Very interesting business model. How do you assess the creditworthiness of your customers?
Right. So one of the things that's interesting to know about the market we chose to start in, which is the largest decentralized energy market in the world, Nigeria, is credit scores are not a thing. And so we believe that we have to, and we know that we have to, build our credit system from scratch. But more than just a credit system, it's what we call a techno-economic credit underwriting platform. And so our system actually analyzes not just your ability to pay, your bank statements and all of that information, and your credit score from the bureau, but we also have a score that looks at the technical fit of the solution that either a provider is recommending to you or our system is recommending to you. And the technical score and the credit score form our form of credit underwriting, which is different from what a traditional bank would do. So we do it ourselves.
What was the top lesson you learned from the lender marketplace that's informing setting up your off-balance sheet financing facility?
Sure. So the thing that we realized from building our first company, the installation business, was, we tried selling these things. Obviously, we don't want to build a business that just serves 1% of Africans or, starting in Nigeria. So customers started asking for payment plans, and we saw that everyone was doing the same thing. So we worked with banks, and they kind of dragged us through the mud for a couple of years, but we also realized they had a challenge. They were worried about the default rates in the sector. So we tried doing it ourselves. We gave 100 people credit, and none of them defaulted. And we tried to understand why. And the key thing, some almost did default. But the reason they stuck with it is, number one, they were using it for productive energy needs, not Netflix and chill. If you give someone energy for Netflix and chill, they will default. But when they're powering their business or their ambition, they prioritize that cash flow at the top of their waterfall. And that was a key lesson. So we learned how to build trust with them. No customer left behind. When they have an issue, it's because the solution is usually not working 90-something% of the time. There will be bad actors, but it's not the case when you pursue productive energy users.
Very well done. Thank you so much. Fantastic. Let's give him a hand. Excellent. I have this as well. Cool. And we are... No. I'm just looking at my people at the back. There should be one more. There should be one more pitch deck that I do not have. Nathaniel, is it there? I guess it's not. Yeah, are we gonna do, yeah? Yeah? Yes, okay. There we are. Here we go.
I need a bunch more mics.
Yes, there's mics on the
We're going to be down here. Yeah, do you mind grabbing me a few more mics? They were supposed to get me some high chairs.
You're supposed to
Hi,
have high
everyone.
chairs.
Okay, thanks everyone for being here. Yes, please, could you get the stools? 5. Okay, so right now we're going to launch into a more interactive kind of session. So I'm Malika, first of all, from the Catalyst Fund. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited by the energy, by the conversations, and by everything we have planned today. As we were putting together this whole day, we realized that there's just not enough panels and not enough speaking spots for everybody who has something really important to contribute and really important to say. So the idea of this panel is that we're going to have a bunch of chairs up here. All of them will have mics on them. And the idea is that we really develop a conversation. I'm going to ask a few questions. We have some folks who volunteered to be my guinea pigs. They'll start by answering the questions. They'll invite you to give your responses. When they feel like they've added what they wanted to say, they'll leave their mic on the stool. And that's an invitation for those of you who want to participate in the conversation to come up, grab a seat, grab a mic, and contribute your thoughts. My ask here is threefold. When you come up, to share your name and your organization, to be really specific and really concrete about the things that you're passionate about, the things that you see, the things that you know about in terms of opportunities and barriers, to leave your pitching and your talking points and your speech making for a different stage, right? We just finished pitches. This is now the moment for conversation and honesty and pragmatism. And that when you feel like you've shared the important thoughts you want to share, that you make space up here for other people to join, so that we are able to include as many voices as possible. So the 3 asks: your name and organization, be really pragmatic and concrete, and make space for other voices. And if we need to, we'll have space here for people to line up so that those of us that are up here recognize that there's folks waiting to speak. Any questions? No? This is super clear? Okay. So what I want to do is ask my guinea pigs to join me on the stage. All 5 of you. And the question, we're going to try and divide this short conversation into 2 pieces. The first question I want to ask is to this group of people and to all of you, is what are the things that you're really excited about, that you think are underexplored, underfunded, under-recognized in terms of the opportunities to build climate resilience? I invite you to talk about sectors, about models, about stages, about founder types, being really specific with the things that you see that excite you, and share with our audience. Yeah? David, you look ready to go. I look ready to go? Yeah.
Thank you, Malika.
Yeah, you want to grab a seat?
And I got a seat? Okay. I'll try not to fumble and drop. Oh, we're moving. So hi, everyone. My name is David Delcer. I'm with BFA. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer. BFA Global, I've also been part of the founding team at Catalyst Fund, and I am also now playing the role of co-chair of the CFAR Alliance, which is an alliance of a number of players that really care about innovation for adaptation and resilience. Players like FSD Africa, BFA, Catalyst Fund, PayPal, MasterCard Foundation, and several others. And I'm very easily excitable, so I'm excited about a lot of things. For example, just seeing this event today, seeing so many of us already, and sensing that this is a turning point, that this community is thriving, is super exciting to me. The other thing that I've been sleepless about, full of excitement, is the dawn of the AI age, which just happened, I guess, a few months ago. I swear to God, I didn't prepare my talking points with ChatGPT. I thought about it, but didn't have time. But I think this arrives just in time, as we as a species have to tackle the most complex crisis we've ever caused. It is great to expand, augment our brains with a brand new technology platform that will change the world as much as the mobile phones did or the internet did. So that's, I think, to me, extremely exciting. I think it's also exciting in terms of investment. that is the one area of the VC space that is booming. So if you have any AI spice in your pitch, that helps. And I wanted to not just talk dreamily about it, but actually start talking about concrete examples that you can learn more about in this conference, of how some of these amazing innovators that are here today are starting to use AI to make them better, to make their products better. So I'm particularly excited about two layers, right? One is, how do we make the amazing founders that we have here? We've heard a lot of calls for them to go faster, for deals to flow faster, for them to fly faster and save the planet. But what is the role of AI in helping these amazing founding teams deliver more, execute faster, right? For example, one of the programs we're involved in is called TECA, Triggering Exponential Climate Action. We launch startups, and we're announcing the second wave of these startups. We just did at Africa Climate Summit, and we're going to be injecting AI throughout to help plug the knowledge gaps that the startup founding teams have. Because think about it, if you have a team of 2 or 3, what sort of superstars you need to know about climate, which is a complex thing itself, about whatever community you're working in, biodiversity, because you also don't want to screw that up, right? Technology, lean startups, there's so many things you need to learn. AI can be definitely an augmenting thing for founders. You can code twice as fast your prototype, for example, with AI, which has some not so great effects that maybe Paul will talk about, but it definitely is great for startups, right? We already know some of the startups in the first TECA wave that are putting together contracts in Swahili by asking ChatGPT instead of paying a lawyer. So your money goes farther, right? So I'm very excited about what founders are going to do once they fully figure out how to put this rocket into their team, right? What is the role of AI as your co-founder, right? I'm very excited about us finding that out. The second layer, which is even more important in my opinion, is how do we use these technologies to build products so that we augment the brains of the low-income communities, vulnerable communities we really care about? How do we help them? I don't have a great answer. I think it's going to be a very fun and thriving journey to learn. But we already are seeing some of the startups, again, in TECA. One is called VUA, that you might see on a panel later. They've already put together an SMS gateway to explain their financial terms to fishers over SMS, talking to ChatGPT about the product they offer. So that's one way to help, sell your product better, explain it better. And this is an example that's already going, right? We already also have another panel later on one of the CFAR initiatives called Universal Climate Insurance, where we want to help every single victim of climate change or a climate disaster with some monetary support and some mental support and some crisis management. So what if we build an AI, a planetary AI, that will learn from all our different disasters so that we can help the next victims of the next disaster, right? So you'll hear that on a bit about that in another panel. So yeah, if anyone is excited about AI too, please come talk to me as you share. As you can see, I'm so excited I can't even speak properly. Thank you very much, Malika.
You can leave your mic on your... Yeah, you can leave it there.
And I go pick someone, or they...
No? You can just leave it. And okay. So now David's spot is vacated. I don't know where the feedback is coming from. So David's spot's now vacated. Our panel is going to continue, our dynamic panel. And as folks feel inspired, I welcome you to come grab the mic and join us up here.
Do I go next? Great. May Yego. I'm an investment manager within the investment pillar of FSD Africa. And from a financial markets development angle, I think what we're most excited about, I know we speak about, the big financing needed, but I think we need to acknowledge some of the progress that has been made. We've seen quite additional new funding coming into the sector. Ourselves, as the investment pillar, have deployed over 90. We've invested in Catalyst, Persistent, Kavango, and they themselves are looking to deploy capital of, I think, over 400 million into the climate space. So I think there is some progress. More actors, more players need to come into the space, but definitely excited to see that there is more capital being deployed into the investment space. And to add on to that kind of capital, it's very well thought and structured in terms of what exactly are the market gaps within climate it's trying to address. So I can give the example of Mexico, who's sitting nice next to me, and Catalyst that helped set this event. They thought about, there is still gaps and proof needed in that early stage kind of risk and the kind of capital that is willing to take the investment risk of proof of concept. So we're seeing more of that. There's a panel earlier this week at KICC that were discussing catalyzing early stage capital, and we had Delta 40 and Persistent, and all of them are really going beyond just the venture capital model and embedding within the model more thought about how do we really accelerate the sector. So they are coupling the early stage risk with venture building that then answers the other side of this equation is how do we drive more startups and investable transactions to really be able to capture the capital that is coming into the sector, and how do we ensure that these solutions, that the great solutions that have been pitched are moving from the startup, the venture space, and are really scaling and getting to the market with affordable, accessible products. Yeah. And then another point I'm excited about in the financial sector is how the blending of capital and the different financial instruments that we're seeing. So for example, we have InfraCredit that is looking at credit enhancement for infrastructure projects. We ourselves as FSD Africa, through our investment in Catalyst, we leveraged our capital from our digital innovation team to first set up Catalyst and support the intermediary to get to a point where it can absorb investment capital from the investment pillar. So how different pools of capital are coming together is another area I'm excited about, and how they're thinking through the different instruments to really fill out the gaps in the financial systems. In terms of barriers, I guess the barriers are not the opportunity. I think there's still some design work and structuring elements to think through how do we really understand the risks associated with climate, early stage investing. It's a nascent sector, growing sector, and how do we ensure that we are designing products, financial products, and even driving capital down to the bottom that is really benefiting the full scale, including the communities, that they can really tangibly see the value of the investments that are being made at the top level from ourselves down to the intermediaries like Mexico to the companies. So yeah, those will be the areas of where we can grow more. And local capital participation. I think it's not a challenge of climate, but it's a challenge of how do we get our own local capital in the continent to start participating in climate and deploying more and being part of the conversations as well.
I think I'll go. I'm tired of sitting. Okay. I'm Shreya. I work as an investment associate at the Global Innovation Fund. Two things that I'm excited about. Firstly, because I work on the grants team, I'd like to know more about how can we scale locally led innovations through government pathways. The reason I say this is that the scale pathway for in India is very different to that for Kenya and in Ethiopia. Different government structures are weaker or stronger, and I recently learned that the Kenyan government has a climate change fund for county level governments, and it's going to be scaled across all 42 counties. So I'm looking forward to see what the priorities are and how we can channel our innovations through those networks and help them scale and be sustainable. The second area that I think is underfunded and it should be looked into more is having more institutional level of infrastructure for having governments to be ready for climate resilience. So one example from our portfolio is hyperlocal mapping at an affordable rate for governments and civil society organizations. And this is not satellite imagery, it is UAVs and street imagery that can basically tell you where buildings are, where the roads go, and it goes up to 5 to 10 centimeters. You can use this sort of data to benefit the public and plan for climate resilience. And an example for that is, let's say a hurricane is coming. You can use this data to determine the height of the storm surge, and the government can set up hurricane shelters in those elevated areas where they think the storm is going to hit, and that could hopefully save a lot of lives. Thank you.
Can I? Sorry. No, I was just going to say, can I go next? Because my point is very related to what we just covered. Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Shruti Sharma. I work as a program officer with the United Nations Better Than Cash Alliance. I'm based in New York. Better Than Cash Alliance is a partnership of governments, international development organizations, and companies, and we work with our members to help them transition from cash to digital payments. And I'll start with one thing that we are really excited about is our new work stream on climate, which we have been trying to discuss with our government members. And finally, we are looking to help our government members leverage and expand digital infrastructure to build climate resilience, especially in context of adaptive social protection and anticipatory action in humanitarian payments. And anticipatory action is exactly based on what you just explained about using geospatial techniques to have thresholds when a disaster is going to hit, and then government can be prepared in advance to transfer those emergency relief funds to the people. This results in cost efficiency as well as for the government and humanitarian sectors, as well as getting, more importantly, the timely payments to the beneficiaries and the users. So, but the risk that we see is that, and that's what I have been hearing even from the government members during Africa Climate Summit last 2 days. Firstly, there is a lot of climate financing going into the space, but it's not trickling down to the grassroots level. So that's the first key point that Ms. Pogolo also highlighted during her intervention in the morning. And then the second one is governments are not very well right now equipped in terms of knowing about all these new things on AI and the potential of innovation and technology that all of you are here working on. So maybe finding the right platforms and or partnerships like CFAR Alliance and Catalyst Fund here, which can facilitate this role, and us also in terms of international development organizations in raising awareness for the governments to understand how they can, for expanding these adaptive social protection systems, they can leverage some of the financial products and other innovation technology that you all are working on. Happy to have a chat with all of you in case you are interested. Thank you.
Thanks for that. My name is Paul. I'm the CEO of Shortlist. We're based here in Nairobi. We're an executive search and workforce development firm focused across Africa and on the startup and social impact worlds, particularly green economy. Before this, I spent about a decade as an impact investor, primarily investing in financial inclusion startups around the world. And over, we would make the investment, and then the problem immediately shifted to a human capital, talent, people challenge. So we started Shortlist to try to start to drive more human capital and talent into this space. And what I'm seeing right now in climate that gets me excited as an opportunity, but also a barrier, is that we're talking about huge numbers of financial capital that has to flow into this sector across Africa. I've heard 40 billion a year. I've heard 100 billion a year. I'm sure many of you have other numbers. If that is not paired with really thoughtful approaches to how we develop and connect and pipeline the human capital, the talent, the skills at all levels of organizations into this sector, a lot of this isn't going to work. And it's kind of an obvious statement, but I'm always shocked at how little comparative attention is brought to the talent side of the equation. A few things we're excited about that we're developing at Shortlist. We've been running for the last 5 years programs in partnership with the UK government, Global Energy Alliance, Rockefeller Foundation, and others to try to drive more youth into the climate sector. That's a mix of awareness-raising programs so that people know there's actual jobs that they should be thinking about and aware of. That's different ways of approaching vetting and assessments so that we can connect people better. And then actually sponsoring with wage subsidies some apprenticeships and things like that. If any of you we've been running those in clean energy, but we're now expanded into climate and green economy more broadly. So if anyone wants some free help hiring your junior teams, be in touch. We also are starting to think more about how do we channel the mid-career professionals that want to get into this space en masse. I think people are waking up around the world and across Africa and thinking, having this climate moment, wanting to do something relevant and useful, and not knowing where to turn. So we're launching something in the coming weeks. We just launched a job board yesterday, but a number of other features that we hope can be a gathering spot and a hub for people that want to make that transition. There's a number of cool, I just saw Sella walk in from Jacob's Ladder. I know there's a number of cool ambassador and fellowship programs coming online. How do we start to support those and get more people aware of those and channeled into those programs? We're also thinking about how to supply the senior talent, because I think that is a gap, particularly as we think about some of the project and the infrastructure investments that need to happen. One of the things we're working on is kind of like a fractional executive platform, where what we're trying to do is, as more and more professionals want opportunities that are project-based or that are long-term part-time, CFO 10 hours a week, we're hoping we can start to create a platform that makes it easier for professionals to explore that kind of career, but more importantly for climate tech startups, for project developers to be accessing that talent in real time and as they're needed in a more affordable piecemeal approach. So this is an area I'd love to see. Obviously, people love talking money. There's a huge financial capital need. I really hope that we don't forget the human capital need. One of the things that is an issue right now, and I see Jasper from Dahlberg over here, we had a long conversation on this yesterday, but we don't know where the jobs are going to come from across the sector for more than like a year or two out into the future. We have a pretty good sense of the next 12 months in different markets, but we are severely lacking data on labor demand 3 to 5 years from now. And if we want to get that talent ready, now, we need to be starting now. And if you look at the US, if you look at the EU, there's very sophisticated models and data to be able to project a 3 million person shortage of solar installers across the EU by 2030. We are really kind of flying blind right now on what we need across Africa. And so I think one of the things, I don't think we're the firm to do it, but we're looking for partners who might be able to fund or do research, because I think if we start to be aware of what the problem is, we can all work together to tackle it. So happy to talk more human capital with anyone. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Hi, my name is Hitul. I'm Director of Investments with Mercer Corps Ventures. If you don't know us, then hopefully I can share a little bit. I'm happy to talk after. We're an early stage impact investor focusing on adaptive agriculture and food systems, inclusive fintech, and climate smart solutions. We've been around a little bit. We have a portfolio over 40. And right now what we're really excited about is the focus on building kind of solutions that are viable and sustainable. I think we all have probably done some of our after action review of the last 3 years in the market, especially if you're VCs, and how everything from valuations to other. But I think what excites us is the refocus on what can really be long-term and sustainable building. I think we look at the reality of what the capital markets are, what they will probably be for the next 10 years. Similarly, that I don't think I can predict out that there'll be a robust IPO market, just like you're looking at a shortage of capital. And so I think what we're looking at is like, who's really wanting to be here and build around and really focus on the mass market. Because I think, to me, we say we're an impact investor. I think a lot of people are here for impact. But over just the last 4 or 5 days, people are still out there separating impact and scale. And I don't understand that, because when I look at 80% of where the population and the incomes are, they're in the same place that those consumers need the impact, right? So I just look at what would be a scalable business. And so I think that piece I'd really like to start changing and ask everyone that hears someone else a founder separating impact or not, ask them if they want to scale. And if they don't, that's fine. Send them to someone with PE, but don't send them to me because I'm VC and I need scale. But else, I think it needs to be clear that we have to get this message out, because I'm still not seeing it out there. So anecdotal, it's not RCT. So I think the other thing in going to models is we've done a pretty deep dive in our thematic areas. Our theses are actually public, so they're going to be on our website. You can go find them. And what's exciting us is like going that second layer around precision ag. going into food systems. How do you do financing that actually reaches a smallholder without having to sell something to the smallholder? For 10, 15 years, going back to my Asia days, we've all put the pressure on the smallholder farmer. The person who can take the least risk has had to take the most risk and lose everything. And I don't understand why this industry even talks that way now. So I think we have to refresh that also. And it's along the food system and the value chain is what excites me, where we can all take the risk with that smallholder farmer, whether it's Cargill, whether it's an aggregator, whether it's a tech company. We can find a way. The technology is there. The AI is there. Blockchain's there. We have a Web3 person here from our team. Talk with them if you want to talk about it. But I'm not saying it's easy, but I think there's a way to de-risk that we all along the food system, not because we're nice people. Maybe we are, maybe we're not. Because we need it to work for the climate and for the environment and for the communities, right? And again, it's also because it's going to be the most scalable solution. It's going to be the things that the large aggregators and the OLAMs and others are going to look for. So if you're building something and you're not thinking about what they would need, then you're also not looking at your exit opportunity, even selfishly. So to me, there's a few reasons to really think about how we de-risk across the food systems. And under that, of course, there's a climate lens because food systems are very integrated with climate. So yeah, for us, that's a really exciting piece. Just yesterday, I think Amira was here today. She's amazing. I met Amira, who's doing precision ag and irrigation in Tunis and wants to come down to sub-Saharan Africa. So that's the next piece I'm going to talk about is the connective tissue in the industry. I think the connective tissue has gotten better, but I think we can all take on responsibility for making it even stronger. And that, I mean, from everyone who's sitting in DC and London and looking at it at an IC fund-to-fund levels to people who are implementing and building and finding a way. Because I think what I heard a lot also along some of these places, or some of the other people who made the message or their message, is that we're looking to see how the blended finance can work. How can people know where their role is? But I think that requires a stronger connective tissue to me. And I know there's some siloing. It's natural. We're all different organizations, different mandates, et cetera. But I think we have to challenge ourselves and say, where am I going to build more connective tissue? Especially as an investor, yesterday we were talking like we need grants, especially for climate startups, to de-risk. Debt's not going to come in until they get enough balance sheet that they can loan with. So where's that connective tissue? How can I talk to someone else and say, here are the things we're looking at, so we can all hope to have, here's the thing we're looking at, where's the Venn diagram? But let's start getting that little share pipeline. We all say it, it's hard, I get it, but I think I'm going to put the challenge on myself and hopefully all of us on that one. And then the barriers piece, and I'll end with this, is I'm still cautious, optimistic, I know I have to say that, about lessons. I'm not sure we always learn the lessons of the past as much as I think we like to. And I worry about co-benefits. I worry about us talking about just tech, and not like what the product is going to be and who it serves. And if you don't build a product that serves someone, then you're probably not building a scalable business either. So I'm not trying to separate the two, but I think the last 2 years, again, every deck is AI. This, I know you love AI, I got you. But you know, AI, and the Web3 people, not one besides us, Web3 fund is here this whole week. So if you see them, call them out. Just saying. Right? And so where are you for Climate Week, right? They'll come next week for Ether Safari. So I think we have to literally be able to say, the technologies are there. We can work with them, but I think there's barriers on what the focus will be. And it does concern me that if we get lost in the technology, then we're not necessarily addressing the largest market.
I certainly wasn't expecting to be alone up here, so maybe you should say, or others should join.
Come up. Someone's got to disagree with me. It's my life.
Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Pallavi Sherikar. I am a senior advisor for Adaptation in the Office of the U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry. And really, it's been so great to be here because I think that this, today in particular, represents a critical, more concrete conversation. And I think you need both. I think you need both the political will that we've seen early on in this week, and then you also need the concrete solutions that all of you are actively working on. So, you know, one of the things that I think this week in particular, and the summit in particular, has highlighted, and I think Minister Boglo said it well, that this is really focused on African leadership and African solutions that are here, that are already at work. And from our perspective and from the policy perspective, one of the things that we've been thinking about is what is the role of international finance in supporting this? And so 2 years ago, President Biden launched his emergency plan for adaptation and resilience, known as PREPARE, because we love our acronyms. We like to think that's a good one. And PREPARE really brings together 19 federal departments and agencies across the US government with a goal of helping 500 million people in climate vulnerable developing countries adapt to and manage the impacts of climate this decade. And when we were creating PREPARE, a key focus was on mobilizing private capital and private sector engagement, not as a replacement for public finance, but really looking at how can public finance facilitate increased investment by the private sector as well as into the private sector. And why into the private sector? Well, it's particularly this conversation here that we're having on the importance of SMEs, in particular for adaptation, because I mean, anyone that works on resilience knows that to be effective, you have to be nimble to the context, the local circumstances, and the changes that you see month to month or year to year. And I think SMEs in particular are really well positioned to do that, but need to be better equipped to be able to manage that. So we've been trying to look at it in two different ways, and maybe I'll just talk about two specific examples and then specific opportunities. So one is through our funding for accelerators and incubators. So we're supporting the Global Innovation Lab that's managed by the Climate Policy Initiative. I think they have a representative, Morgan, in the back over there that you can talk to, with an adaptation window. So to every year have new innovative financial instruments that can get the support they need to be further developed. And we're really happy that Catalyst Fund was the winner of what I must say was a very competitive year in the Global Innovation Lab, and really represented, I think, a huge opportunity. I'm really excited to be able to support the Catalyst Fund through the lab. So that window will continue next year. The call for proposals for that should, I think, be launched probably this fall, probably in October, but Morgan will confirm. The second thing we're doing is really looking at how do we support local initiatives and locally owned initiatives. So one of the things we announced at COP27 was a $25 million investment into the Africa Adaptation Initiative's Food Security Accelerator. This Food Security Accelerator is really looking at the importance of, we're hearing, I think, and in the past panel we heard from, I think, both James and Anne-Marie, the importance of there being risk-tolerant capital, and as the US government providing public finance, particularly from the State Department, we do have the risk tolerance. We do have the ability to provide concessional capital in that regard. So we supported this Food Security Accelerator, which is looking to provide much smaller ticket sizes to help grow the SMEs that are focused on climate resilient food security solutions. So really looking at what are the climate risks that we're facing, what are the solutions we're going to need, particularly in the food system space. So that $25 million is now operational. The accelerator itself will be launching a call for proposals at the end of this month and looking to make their investments early next year. And then, 2 days ago, Secretary Kerry also announced an additional $20 million investment into this accelerator. So that brings our total investment to $45 million. So I really do hope for those that are here today that are looking for some more risk-tolerant capital that you reach out to the Africa Adaptation Initiative. Yes? No, please. We're going to run out of time. Oh, yeah, please. For sure.
I apologize. We're trying to catch up on time. So thank you, both of you, and thank you everybody who came up. Let me just close by saying that I think I heard three things from this conversation. One is that we're excited. I can hear from the energy outside. I can see from everybody in this room, there's people are in this room, in this space, in our community, are excited, are seeing the opportunity, are seeing ways forward. The second thing I would take away from this is that we're excited about a lot of things. like I think agriculture, we hear a lot about, but it's also all the spaces in agriculture. It's logistics, it's precision ag, it's new kinds of inputs. We're excited about tech, we're excited about talent, we're excited about different kind of funding mechanisms. Like there's a lot going on. And the third thing I would highlight is that with so much going on, making sure that we're learning the lessons, building the community, building that connective tissue is critical. That we're all circling around the same problem, the same set of users in many cases, the same set of barriers in many cases. So having these conversations, building these relationships, staying in touch is increasingly important. So I'll leave you with those 3 thoughts. Thank you again, everyone, and I look forward to continuing the conversation throughout the day.
How absolutely fantastic was that? So nice. Let's give them a real round of applause. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Super cool. We're headed toward lunch, and we're going to be very quick about getting towards lunch, and we want to make sure we do that right now. Before we do that, we have a quick, short, concise keynote that's going to happen right now. Then after the keynote, I'm going to give you feedback on the lunch situation. We think we're going to do the keynote, then lunch. And then we're going to have a pitch track after that. But right now, keynote, John. I saw John. Yeah, John Darney, there you are. Karibu sana. I'm just going to make sure all the mics are off, but welcome.
Thank you. Can you use the... Yeah, the presentation is... Good afternoon, everyone. I know all of us are looking forward for lunch, but let me be the last one to just give a context. After listening to all the pitches and the discussions, I think I'm just here to give a brief context of the whole topic that you're talking about. My name is John Jeraine. I'm an editor with Agri-food. Agri-food, we are part of Agri-food, a VC. We finance startups in agri-tech space. So far we've done like 60. We managed to finance more than 60 startups. And every year we do produce an investment report, specifically zeroing on agri-food tech, a space that is so big. And I think all of us can attest, having listened to the conversations over the week, agriculture is a very big, is one of the most affected area by climate change, and is one area that for Africa we really need to push this conversation and get to understand what is happening. So as Agri-food, we do a report every year on agri-food tech investment report, and we look at the kind of deals that are coming here. I think we all agree, listening to the pitches from the different innovators, there's so much innovations that are chasing money. But we need to understand that getting investors to pump money into innovation, it really takes more than just pitching and having an idea. Because investors also want to look at what impact are you having on the project that you're working on. And in Africa, something that is coming up, something that is coming up is that over the past 10 years, the market has seen a lot of money being pumped into the agri-tech food space alone. Over the past year, looking at just 10 markets in Africa, 1.7 USD, it's quite a lot of money. And you look at, from that graph, the money is spread across the 4 regions of the continent. But there's a lot of concentration in various areas. East Africa and West Africa and North Africa. There's an explanation to that. It's because of a lot of innovations. We are seeing a lot of deals coming up. We are seeing a lot of young guys and innovators really coming up with so many innovations and chasing all this money. And investors are responding quite positively and are willing to put money into these startups. But one thing to note is that the concentration of this money rotates around more or less the same space of innovations, which we call at Agri-food midstream. Guys who are dealing with sorting solutions like access to financing for farmers, access to inputs, access to seeds, B2B logistics issues and procurement. So we think that there's a lot of space for other investors to come up and think beyond what is in there in the market. Because you're looking at, you talk about novel farming methods, talk about farm management software, talk about things to do about system, IoT, Internet of Things. These are areas that investors need as young guys and guys who are really looking for funding. We need to think beyond what everybody is doing, because there is a tendency that we get to see a lot of if someone is doing something, someone else comes and copy-paste it, which does not really help, because in terms of impact, already the person who came with the original ideas has already gone to the market and is doing a lot of stuff. So thinking beyond the normal innovations, I think it's quite important. And you can see, this year, it hasn't been a very good year for startups funding in the continent. It's really been a bad year. Compared to 2022, which was a really good year, attracting 4.4 million. Now we are talking about talking about the first half, in terms of financing. We're talking about $100 million this year alone, with like a 7% decline. It tells you that there are things out there that are making investors not want to bring money into startups. The basics of them is that the global economies haven't been performing well. In Africa alone, the economic situation, even looking at Kenya, we're just coming out from a very tough economic environment. Globally, inflation and tightening of interest rates really affected the thinking of investors. So we've really seen a really big dip in terms of money coming into the continent. Even in terms of deals, we've only done 51 deals. Tells you that despite there are so many innovations out there chasing money, investors are more or less gone slow in terms of bringing money and even chasing deal. Because at the end of the day, there are factors that will affect everything that will affect the kind of investment you get to see. So this year hasn't been good. Looking the second half of the year, chances are that there's not going to be any much recovery. Things have not turned around. Yes, economies have started to more or less, the crises are more or less easy. But in terms of investors bringing quite a lot of money, we don't foresee any kind of major change over the second half of the year. And when you look at this year, in top of the 5 countries, it tells you that Nigeria and Kenya, basically, that's where most of the money have come over this year. And it's more or less spread across Nigeria and Kenya. Why? Because we're seeing a lot of, these two markets have really proved to be quite ahead in terms of innovations, in terms of coming up with so many agri-tech, agri-food ideas. And some of them, I was listening to some of the pitches here, and you can tell that, yes, the ideas which are coming there. And this tells you that there's a lot of opportunity in other African countries to open up and start coming up with these ideas. Because Africa is generally, whole of Africa, agriculture is a big thing, and it's not only concentrated in these few markets. So even these other countries, listening to presentations, for instance, country like Botswana, Namibia, where agriculture is also very big, they have a lot of opportunities to tap most of this money which is coming to the continent. And basically that is it. This is just a brief preview of a report of the Agri-food investment report 2023. This just gives a very short preview of what to expect. The report really addresses the whole ecosystem. It should be coming out, should be going live next week on Thursday, on 14th. So be keen to download, be keen to look forward to it, because it really gives a cross-section detail on the agri-tech food ecosystem, and it addresses all the issues that you as investors, you as innovators would want to know about this market, because it remains a big market. Having listened to the conversation all over the week, it tells you that it's going to continue to be a big market. Might not have been very good this part of the year, but we expect that probably in the next 2 or 3 years, there's going to be a rebound and more money will still continue to come into this market. Because you can see from all the commitments that were done at the summit, most of this money will be looking for ideas to help scale up, to help expand, and to help get them out in the market. So With that, I thank you for it. I thank you so much, and I look forward to launching the report for you guys to have a look at it and explore it and get to understand what is happening in the space. Thank you. Unless anybody has a question that I may respond.
Yes. Does anyone have a question to ask before he leaves? Any questions? Any thoughts? Anyone? No? Well done. Thank you. Let's give him a hand again. Thank you for making that a short one. And now it is time for lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you here at 1 o'clock precisely, but you'll do your time outside, and the doors are going to be open here, at the back, and here, and Nathaniel's looking at me quite. Okay. AgTech and then first breakout room and lunch. Okay, all right, change of plan, change of plan, change of plan, change of plan. I'm sorry, change of plan. I apologize, change of plan. So, managing time, my mistake. So we're going to do AgTech now because we want to tell you where the breakout rooms will be. So after lunch, we get into breakout rooms. So while they're doing lunch, they're going to... Do you know what? This is the guy who knows what's happening.
So ladies and gentlemen, we do appreciate having a very flexible ecosystem. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be launching the Agri-Tech pitch sessions, but in parallel, we'll be doing the breakout rooms. So for those who are interested, where is the clicker? Please close your eyes. I don't want you to see any of the awesome startups that are coming up. So just what's coming up in the next bit. Just 3, 2, 1. Just bear with me. It's going to be a very long pitch track, I promise. But it's going to be very interesting too. Just get there. Let me just get there. This is just a teaser, you know, from what's coming up. Okay, cool. So we'll be doing a couple of breakout rooms. So breakout session in room number 1. So just to break it, I don't know if you want to break through the breakout rooms. I think it'll probably be easier for you. AgTechs with you both now.
Hi. So in breakout session in room 1, over the tents, we'll have Deep Blue Horizons, exploring ocean tech opportunities in Africa. So please head there if you want to join that conversation. Room 2, Cultivating Tomorrow, the power of innovation in agriculture. That's in room 2, that's in the tents as well. Breakout session 3 is in the tents as well, Feeding the Future, innovating food systems in Africa. And breakout 4 is the only one that is on the other side, that red building. So go there to join Tech Meets Empathy, AI-driven support for every climate victim. And here, stay for the Agri-Tech pitch. And I pass it on back to you. Thank you.
So I implore all the AgTech investors, please be in the room. We have 7 very incredible startups who will be pitching. But those who are interested in visiting one of the breakout rooms, as they mentioned, number 1 will be at the tents. They all got demarcated. Number 2 will be at the tents. Number 3 will be at the tents. And then number 4 will be right over there in the room. But without further ado, I'm going to call the judges to the front in order to start our Agri-Tech pitch track. Just need to go all the way back. Boom, 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 boom. It's a lot.
Yeah, this is fine. Flexible ecosystem energy, that's for sure. Refreshing. So we've got Arabo Grow, CBEX, Coolbox, SKT Life. There we go. All right, so we have Henry, Imelda, and Donna, yeah? This is Arab. No problem. Listen to me. Listen to me. All right. We're fixing that technical issue. Be back in a minute. I'll tell people outside what we have.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is we're going to have breakout room session 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll break for lunch then, and then after lunch we'll have breakout rooms 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then what we'll do is we'll have the Agri-tech pitch during that session.
Okay, technical issues have been fixed. We're going to go to our Arable presentation. I think it's a net thing. Yep. Last thing changed as well?